Hello! So I am back with another chat while we paint type video. I have another work that I'm starting on. Just got back from my main job because I have a regular day job. And I decided, while I still have a couple hours of light left in the day, I'm going to work on the painting that I started the other night. And I figured I may as well try and make a little chat while you paint video while I do that. So, if you'd like to join me, here we go. So I know that like vlogging and YouTube videos in general, sometimes people feel really weird about them and like a tad judgmental, and which is totally fine, like each their own. But for me personally, I remember when I first started watching vlogs, and it was a few years ago. I think it was probably when I was really watching them a lot was in 2020. And maybe like right before 2020, that's the winter of 2019. I was teaching art, and I remember that I was super stressed out and feeling like I was not really where I was meant to be in my life at that point. And I just remember watching, I had a couple vloggers that I absolutely adored, and I would watch them on my lunch breaks and on like some of my planning breaks while I worked. I would like have them on in the background. And I personally got so much like, my puppy is hanging out with me down here. That's for the puppy. Hi, buddy. Hello. My faithful little buddy, always there. But I personally just got kind of like so much joy and peace from watching those videos. I don't know why, like they were just calming and peaceful and kind of sweet and cute, and the vloggers really romanticized their lives and they seemed really authentic, and for whatever reason, maybe because it was so kind of boring, but it was calming to my nervous system, and I remember loving it. And ever since then, like, vloggers on YouTube have been some of my favorite things to watch, and obviously not everyone. I am kind of picky, like they have to give me that feeling of like calm and kind of happiness when I'm watching it. It has to feel real. And so for me, the idea of vlogging, it started out being something I love to watch, and then it eventually, I thought for years it'd be fun to try and make some. So when I lived in Alaska a couple of years ago, it became something that I eventually tried and did on my own, and I think a few of them are pretty cool. But then, like, you have no idea unless you vlog or you make videos. It takes so much time and effort and work to put into like creating even like a small 15-20 minute vlog. I guess it doesn't have to, but if you're trying to create like a really artistic, high quality one, then it actually does take a while. So for life reasons, and also just like I mentioned in the other one, like losing my laptop and not getting another one yet, I kind of paused on making them, although I really am excited about getting back into it. For me, I think it was like recreating and the idea of being that calming, joyful presence for someone else, like these vloggers were for me during that time in my life, is like a sweet idea. I'm definitely not there yet, I don't think, but that's like one of my motivations. But then another motivation for me to make these types of videos is honestly just that I find them so fun to make. And then the second motivation for making them truly is that it's always been like a creative outlet for me. So when I especially during the time when I did move to Alaska, like I wasn't living alone, I didn't really have a studio space, I didn't really have the time and money and energy to put into like painting and drawing and those types of traditional art that I had always done before. And so I thought, like, well, this is so easy to just make videos. And I was already trying to like film everything because I'd never been to Alaska before. I moved there like kind of suddenly. It was such an adventure in every way. And I started filming just regular clips, right? So I thought one day, like, I'll just put them together into like a vlog of sorts. And once I started like my first one, it was so fun, and I found for me that it was such a great creative outlet, because I wasn't really making traditional types of art like I would normally do. But once I realized like I could make these videos, it became my creative outlet for a while. And I think it is such a cool creative outlet because you've got the videography aspect of it, but then you've also got the storytelling, and you've got the you know, the digital design with the thumbnails and the music that you choose behind it, and all of it together is just such a fun creative process. So for me, that's why I've always enjoyed vlogging and watching other people's vlogs, and now trying to create my own. And I personally myself get a lot of value out of that. So anyways, I hope that especially when I get another laptop, that I will be able to like actually start making more put together, detailed, extravagant ones like I was making a while back. But for now, I think it's just kind of fun to do these little chat with me while I paint videos. And you know what, like if no one watches, that's okay. Like it would obviously be better if people did, because part of making art, I think, is like you want people to engage and enjoy it in some way. But then also, like with any art, I feel like there's got to be a bigger part of it that you are making it just for yourself, and because you have this need, almost this like urge to make it, to be creative. And so it's similar to drawing and painting with me, that it's the same way. Like it's fun, I want to make it, I'm making it, hopefully people will eventually watch and enjoy, and might also find peace and some kind of joy that come from watching my vlogs. That would be amazing. But in the meantime, I'm just gonna make them and have fun making them. So let's get to the art now. So I have bought these types of things. I showed you one last time. I bought them just at the only art store here on the island. I wish we had other art stores here. It's so sad. Like we don't have Michael's or Hobby Lobby or like any mom and pop art store. It's pretty sad, but gotta work with what we have for now. Wiggly wiggly. Wiggly wiggly. Hi baby. Hi little buddy bear. So it's that time of night where you start to hear the coqui frogs coming out. I don't know if you guys can hear them. They're not too loud yet, but they start coming out around this time, and they get extremely loud. I don't mind them as much, but I know a lot of people here have major problems with them. So yeah, to me it reminds me of growing up in South Carolina and hearing like the crickets and the cicadas and the tree frogs, which coquis are also tree frogs of some sort. So I kind of like them, but it's like going to sleep with all the night noises is kind of nice. Okay, but so let me show you what I'm working on. This is like the first layer, and my style is continuing to evolve. I think most artists probably throughout their career, throughout their lifetimes, their style evolves and changes. Mine is a lot different than it used to be. It used to be super realistic, and it was mostly people. So these days I'm trying to do a bit more like expressionistic painting. So here's what I'm working on. It's like the first layer, and it's another one that hangs like this, but I really like these actually. The only thing is I don't know how to get prints made of these, but that's okay. These can just be originals. So this is the first layer. I like it a lot. Again, it's inspired by the beautiful upcountry landscape here. Yeah, so I'm gonna work on this for a bit, and we are going to chat about the evolution of my art journey, in hopes that it is interesting in some kind of way to you guys, inspiring, or maybe just, like I mentioned earlier, calming. Maybe it makes you think of your own art journey or the one that you want to have. However it goes. Here we go. So I have such a rough setup here. It's just kind of, let me show you. I'm just working on like tinfoil plate here for my palette, using an old honey jar for my water. Just making do at the moment. I have not taken my things back to the studio yet because we were going to get rid of it, and then we decided to keep it because it's just too good to get rid of. So eventually I'm going to take my things back to the studio and get back to working in there, which I am very excited about. First time ever I've had a studio space in my life. Actually, that's a lie. I had one back when I was living in South Carolina and I adored it. So this is the second time. It's the first time I've had one like actually away from my own home space, which is kind of cool. But anyways, so art for me has always been a thing. If you have known me since I was a child, you would know this, but art has always been super important to me. Some of my earliest memories actually involve art, involve like drawing with my mom. She was an artist as well. She is an artist, and she would sit down and we would ask her to like make all these different drawings. You know, we'd tell her like, draw mom like giving her kids a bath in the bathtub, and that's the one that I always remember for some reason. But she was so good at drawing, and I need to ask her now, like as an adult, I need to ask her next time I'm home to like draw me another little scene like that, because she used to draw little scenes of people and people doing things, and I used to love that. And so that's one of my earliest memories I have, actually. But I grew up in an artist family, so my parents were artists. That's what they literally did for a living. By the time I came around, they were already doing that. So my dad had left his job in the police force. My mom had just graduated with a degree in art education, and they decided to collaborate, come together, and try to like create an art business, which they did. And looking back, especially at seeing how hard it is, and they already had 8 children, not my 8 children, that's what they eventually had, but they already had 3 children. 3 little children, starting from scratch. They built an art business, which is amazing, and I will link it somewhere below, and you guys should totally check it out. They sell on Etsy. They raised 8 children on this art business. So incredibly inspiring. But that also meant that I was surrounded by art ever since I was born. Surrounded by art. Whether, you know, my parents were making art, my mom was making art for fun, or they were making it for the business. Eventually, as I got older, my siblings and I joined in the art making process, and we would help make things for the different shows that they would do. So I remember my parents would literally like travel up and down the East Coast, going to different art shows, and they would sell their work at these different shows. And it was always so exciting when we got to go with, but a lot of times my dad would be the one to just go. He would just drive the van up the East Coast, like hours up to like Pennsylvania and Washington DC, and from South Carolina, and he would set up and sell our artwork. And I grew up hearing these stories of like just wild, like super inspiring, but like leaving with just enough money to like fill up a tank of gas, making it up to the show, and then somehow or another like selling out, right? And like making enough to come home and like live off of for the next however many weeks or months it would be. And you know, eventually things changed and they did less of that and transitioned into like galleries and that type of thing. And then it went from that to like Etsy and more local like farmers market type stuff with my sister's work, because my sister is also an artist. And well, every single one of my siblings are artists because of how we were raised. I don't know whether it's in our DNA, whatever it is. Like, we're all artists in some way or another. Not all of us sells our work, but we all make art. And all my siblings are incredibly talented, and their work is very, very, very impressive, I think. So, anyways, I grew up in that environment, making art of my own, helping my parents get their artwork ready to sell, because my parents were, my dad's a wood carver and my mom paints the carvings. And so some of the things we could do would be like putting base coats down on the ornaments they would make, or putting the strings on the ornaments, or those types of things. Sometimes later even it was like using the scroll saw to cut out the different ornament shapes or the different birds that they would be carving and that sort of thing. So I think that was really, really fun, but I also think that had something to do with me later just feeling like I didn't want to do it as a business so much. I was always way more into like fine arts also, rather than like folk arts and that kind of thing. I loved like Renoir and Monet and Michelangelo and Botticelli. Botticelli was like my favorite artist for a while, but I was more into like the realistic figure drawings, and that's more of what I would do for fun. And at some of these shows, you know, I started like at a really young age also selling my work, which was just friends and family, right? Like trying to be sweet to me probably, but still, I remember that feeling of like making something on my own and then someone wanting it and then selling it, and it felt super amazing. But later, as time went on, I spent so much time like in the world of art. Like, we didn't really do much of anything else. Like, I didn't do sports. There was a time when I wanted to, but like we didn't do that. We just didn't. We were the artsy kids and spent a lot of time making art, painting, pastels, charcoal, drawing. And I think at some point I got super burnt out. And it was around the time that I started at university. So I had decided that I wanted to be a professional artist. But then my parents, I think after years of like struggling and realizing how hard it is to be a professional artist today, like they kind of tried to convince me out of that path. And I guess it worked. They convinced me to do art education instead, even though I remember jokingly, like as a teenager, making jokes about how I would never ever be a teacher. I didn't have the patience for it or the desire to do it. And of course I ended up going to university for art education. So that was really fun though. I mean, my art classes were so fun. I used to love the studio classes, just sitting around like painting and drawing and whatever with your friends. It was amazing. And I really, really loved that. But I think somewhere in the mix, when I realized I wasn't going to be a professional artist, I wasn't going to be spending so much time selling my art, it was going to be more of like teaching and that sort of thing, I got burnt out with it. I think I had just made art for, like, spent so much time making art for the past, like, at that time it was like 18, 19 years, that I just was like tired of it. Like, I was skilled and talented and I loved it, but I got so like tired of it. My puppy is playing with his toy. If you can hear the squeaky toy. So anyways, I reached the point where like I didn't want to do it anymore. I wanted to be known for doing something other than art. I went through this period where I don't feel this way at all anymore, but I started feeling like art wasn't important enough, which blows my mind now. But like art wasn't important enough in the world to go and do that with my life. I had to do something else, something bigger, something different, something that was gonna like change the world. And of course I view it completely differently now, where I think art is so critical and important in the world for so many different reasons, especially during the time that we're in right now. And I do see the value in it now. But back then it was like, I've done this forever. I gotta do something different, you know, and I felt like it wasn't. I just felt like it wasn't the thing I was meant to do, and at that time I very much was an idealist looking at the entire world through rose-colored glasses, and yeah, thought it was going to be a lot different than it's turned out to be since I have been an adult. But you know, you live and you learn, and you realize like there's only so much you can do. And see, maybe now I'm more of a pessimist. But I'm back to this place. I kind of went full circle where now I do want to spend my time making art, and I spend almost all of my free time outside of like working and then spending it with my boyfriend and my puppy. I spend my time making art and hoping to have enough soon to have my own like art show and show up at a show that I used to go to, like these shows I used to go to when I was little, selling my parents' work, but now I'll be selling my own work. And I just feel like that will be so incredible and like such a full circle moment, and I think it'll be really powerful and impactful for me in my life personally. So yeah, so that's kind of the path I took. During that burnout phase, I didn't even make art anymore. Like I just was so tired of making art, that I probably spent at least 5 years of my life where I didn't touch a paintbrush. Maybe every now and then would pick up a pencil and draw something, but I was, you know, not feeling it then. And it wasn't until like the time when I moved back home after getting my master's degree in Israel. I moved back home, you know, COVID happened, everything was different. I was recovering from life, and that's when I had the little studio in my apartment. I finally started getting excited about art again. It just came naturally, and I think that's what needed to happen. I needed to have that time away from it where I was just burnt out and like not force myself to make art anymore in order to come back to it naturally and really be excited about it again. So that's what I did, and that's when I got super excited about art again. I had the studio, then I made some of my best work in that studio, I feel like, and then ever since then, like that desire to keep making more and more art and eventually turn it into like a professional business, you know, make a living off of my art, that desire came around, and I still want to. It's just a matter of time and making it happen. But that goal is definitely still there. And now when I come home from work, if I have a couple hours free in the evening, I'm sitting down and I'm trying to paint because I'm trying to make that happen. And it's gonna take some time. Like it takes a while, especially when you're already like spending a lot of your time at like a full-time day job, and then I have a second job at the moment as it is, and so I'm spending a lot of time on those things. So it takes time to build up work to even have enough to take to shows and things like that. But I'm getting there, and I think that I will, at least in the next couple months, have enough to not only take to a show, but I'm gonna end up getting prints made of some of the work that I've already made, some of the little cards that were like Maui inspired cards. Some of those I will be turning into prints, and they will be going into like greeting card packets, and then I will eventually set up my Etsy and my own personal website and have work available there. But it's a process, and I'm just trying to take my time. I decided today that rather than stressing myself out about it and trying to make sure everything happens all at once, I'm just gonna take my time with it and enjoy it again, because it really was such a long period of my life that I wasn't enjoying making art anymore. So I'm just happy to be back in it and having fun with it and enjoying making it, and then we'll see what happens from there. But I don't know if these types of videos are fun for you guys. I hope that eventually, the more I make them and the more I get back into my vlogging and stuff, I'll find the people that are interested in this type of thing. And if you do like it, leave a comment. It'll be really fun to hear from you and hear that someone out there got something from this. And if not, it's okay. That's cool because I got something from this. I think it was really fun making this video. I think it was fun to be able to chat while I painted. Or let me know what you think about the painting so far. We're slowly making our way there, working on the second layer now. But anyways, see you guys again soon. Bye.